And like you were saying, I never realized until I actually looked in the mirror and said, "You're a bit of the problem here, Dennis. Maybe it's the system." And I used to say, "Oh, it's the coach. The coach is trying to screw me over, right?" Coaches want to win hockey games. I don't think they're in the business really of screwing kids over. They're in the business of winning. And if you can't help them win, then maybe I shouldn't be there, right? And I realized as I started self-reflecting in the mirror saying, "Dennis, you could have done this better." And then as you get a little older, you realize, like, how can you help the team win? You're going to play on the third line? Yeah, I'm going to play on the third line. Do I want to play on the third line as a 32-year-old guy? No, not really. But guess what? If I can help the team be successful, I'm going to do it, right?
That was 14-year pro, former NHL scout with the New York Islanders, and currently a player advisor with Top Draft Hockey, Dennis Maxwell. And you are listening to the Up My Hockey podcast with Jason Podolin. Just watch me now. Welcome to Up My Hockey with Jason Podolin, where we deconstruct the NHL journey, discuss what it takes to make it, and have a few laughs along the way. I'm your host, Jason Podolin, a 31st overall draft pick who played 41 NHL games, but thought he was destined for 1,000. Learn from my story and those of my guests. This is a hockey podcast about reaching your potential. Hey there, welcome back to the Up My Hockey podcast with Jason Podolin. I am your host, Jason Podolin, and today we are speaking with Dennis Maxwell, hailing from Dauphin, Manitoba. Dennis was an 8th-round draft pick in the 1992 NHL entry draft to the Tampa Bay Lightning. He ended up playing his junior days with Niagara Falls Thunder of the OHL, got traded to Sudbury, and also played with Newmarket. He had a long, storied professional career throughout the AHL, the IHL, the ECHL, was also in England for a short time before he came back to the Central League. So 14-year career, many teams, stuck around hockey once he was finished, and got into scouting with the New York Islanders, was an NHL scout there for, I believe, 8 years, and then got into player advising. So Dennis was also a teammate of mine with the St. John's Maple Leafs in the 96-97 season. So that was a ton of fun actually not 96-97, it was 98-99. And it was great to reconnect with him. I have not spoken with him since 1999. So that's a long time ago, but it was awesome to see his face. One of the best parts about this pod is things, or I should say episodes like Dennis Maxwell and people that come back into your life. Unbeknownst to me that he was involved in hockey, I didn't know what had happened with him or to him, and then his name got brought up in a player recruitment discussion that we had, that he was advising a certain player, and all of a sudden here we are on the podcast, and I'm able to reconnect with an old teammate. So yeah, awesome stuff. I wanted to have him on, I mean, for numerous reasons. The fact that he was an NHL scout for 8 years is a big deal. The fact that he is now a player advisor, that he was a professional. I was going to focus in more so on the player advising side, because I think that's a murky topic for a lot of players and parents out there. You know, the need for one, yes or no. You know, what do they do? How do they do it? Is it a pay-to-play model? Is it not? What's the difference? There's so many questions there around player advising that I thought that we would get into. And Dennis is like a straight-ahead guy. I mean, he was a straight-ahead type of player. If you look at his hockey DB and look at the amount of penalty minutes that he put up, he was an honest guy. He was straight ahead. He was hard-nosed. He fought for what he got, literally and figuratively. And he was just honest, played honest, and that's the way that he is, in his discussions and in his conversations. And I knew that we would be able to get some straight answers from Dennis. The only problem, not that it's a problem, is that we just kind of BS and shoot the shit here for an hour and 15 minutes, about all things hockey. And I think it's a great discussion, but I didn't really get into the player advising stuff until right at the very end. And we didn't specifically talk exactly about, NHL scouting and what they're looking for and that type of stuff. Although we have had discussions on the podcast about that stuff before. So this is more of a generalist conversation, I would call it. about the ups and downs of hockey and what players can and should be focusing on. It was a great catch up for Dennis and I do think it's a conversation that you'll find entertaining and informative. I do have to say, I don't know, I was a little fired up, I guess, on this interview. I do drop, I believe, the occasional F-bomb, maybe once or twice, so that's not usually my style. But so it goes. There's your fair warning. So if you have young children in the car, apologize to them for me, or maybe you might want to skip this episode. But like I said, it's just it's a couple, I believe, if I remember correctly. So I wanted to give fair warning on that. But other than that, hope everyone is well out there, and I trust that you will enjoy my conversation with Dennis Maxwell of Top Draft Hockey. And if you are in, if you are in the situation where you believe that potentially you need to speak to someone, you would like to have representation, Top Draft and Dennis is a great place to start. You can look them up at topdrafthockey.com. I would definitely vouch for Dennis and the work that he does, knowing that the type of human that he is and hearing the rave reviews from the people who have worked with him. So if that is somebody that you or something that you're looking for, I endorse Dennis. And other than that, let's get into our conversation with Dennis Maxwell. All right, welcome to the pod, the Up My Hockey pod with Jason Podolin. Welcome to the pod, Dennis Maxwell.
Thanks for having me, Jason.
Did you ever think that you were going to be on a podcast with Jason Podolin? Frick. Well, we didn't even know what podcasts were 20 years ago. That didn't even exist. So, it's kind of a little bit of a time warp, isn't it?
It really is. And just ended up, how we touch base there again in the last couple of weeks here. And with hockey, it's just a small world, right? It's nice to see this come full circle.
Oh, it's freaking a riot. When your name came up, I was like smiling ear to ear. It's so funny. Like, I don't know. I just said that to my wife when we were chatting before I pressed record there and I had to go get my coffee. I was like a little kid in a candy store. I'm like, it's just so freaking crazy. I just love that about hockey. Like that I can see you, and yeah, we're grizzled now, but it's like we're in the locker room 25 years ago instantly. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, I don't know. To me, that connection is pretty wild. It's fun.
It's nice. Yeah, buddy, you still look great. You look around the same, honestly, when you look like you can play again.
Well, no, you do. I said, I for those listening, the first thing I said to Maxie, I'm like, looks like you never took a punch in your life. And believe me, that's not true, right?
Yeah, it took a few, but I tried to tie up a little more. It's the guys like the Sean Thorntons who went a little more toe to toe, right? But then so I learned a few things.
Yeah, that's it's a great game, and I don't know if you had ever thought I would be behind a mic, but I got pushed into this, by the way, and we never really talked about that. So I was like, when I was getting into the mental side of the game, which is an interesting conversation. I'm sure we can talk about anyways, with the players that you've had, that the lady that I was working with actually it was a young guy that was used to be a hockey player. And so when I was doing business coaching, actually, I don't even know if I've ever even told this story on the pod, but I was doing business coaching with like executives, right? Like health business coaching, essentially. And so I'd been doing that and it was going successful. I was just switching into my own business. And then this guy was helping me. And then he heard my story and he's like, well, he was like, I mean, what you're doing is great, but he's like, why don't you have this same type of thing for hockey players? I mean, you're a 10-year pro and like he knew, and I was like, yeah, why aren't I doing this for hockey players? So it was one of those ones where you got kicked into, and then I was like, okay. And then the next step was the lady that I was working with. And they're like, you have to have a podcast. You got to have a podcast. You're good in a mic. You can connect with people. I'm sure you'll be able to ask good questions. And, and I went into it essentially kicking and screaming because it was the last thing, the one I wanted to start. Two, I thought anyone would be interested in listening to, like there's all these like personal kind of vulnerability moments that you have with yourself, right? About like, who wants to listen to me, or, you make it about yourself until you don't make it about yourself. And as soon as it's not about yourself, then all of a sudden you have a product, right? So anyway, so that's kind of the whole scenario of me getting into this. And one of the things I'll end with though, Maxie, is like, it's been such a gift for like this right here, like that I've connected with so many old teammates, and the conversations that I've been able to have has been absolutely fantastic. And all the bullshit that goes around it, like the part that I don't like about this podcast, it makes up for it with the conversations that I get to have. So I'm really appreciative that you were able to come on, and I'm looking forward to having a chat with you.
Feel the same way. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to this chit chat
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. So I guess for the and for those listening, so we're down here in Coeur d'Alene right now, and uh, and Jeremy Milmock, who was a guest as well. He's the head of hockey down here. He was working with a player and trying to recruit a player to come over here, and in the conversation with me, he's like, yeah, his advisor Dennis Maxwell is, I've been working with him, and I'm like, why do I know that name? And he's like, well, because you played with him. I'm like, yeah, I did play with him. And I'm like, that's right. And so then like that was when I had the big smile on my face. And then so anyways, we were able to connect through that. And now here we are. So let's get back into you though. Like, so we actually crossed paths now going through that hockey DB like in Greensboro.
Yes. So it's funny, right? Plus, I'm glad I was memorable in St. John's for you to start off with. But
well, hey, Roger Maxwell, like Dennis Maxwell.
I know. Yeah.
I had Brian Maxwell in as a coach in Spokane. It's like all these Maxwells, and I'm like, well, and then I was like, yeah, okay, it clicked. And I'm names is not my thing either.
And so I remember my first camp is when I first met you in Greensboro. So you were drafted to Florida, and I remember there was Nasruddin there, yourself. I'm trying to think, was Crom the coach? Was it Crom? Was Cromer the coach?
Rob, yeah,
Cromer, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, and then obviously we played together in St. John's when you were with Toronto, and I was on an AHL deal, and you were still on the big ticket over there. But yeah, that was when you had a great year that year. I think you had about 40 or 45 goals that year, if I remember.
Yeah.
Playing with you. But, I was never your type of player, but had a couple different roles than you did. So.
Well, but that's the beauty of it, right? Like there's a place. And actually I looked at your season that year too. Like, shit, 200 PIMs and 9 goals and 20 some odd points in 40 games. Like that's no joke. And I was kind of, well, you know what? Let's backtrack because I want to talk about that because there's a lot of guys out there that want to figure out how to play pro, right? And how to stay pro, and what it takes. And, the paths are all different. Let's talk about your path. I mean, you were an NHL draft pick, 8th rounder to the Lightning coming out of where? Niagara Falls? Is that where you got drafted from?
Well, yeah, I was traded in my last year, Sarnia Sting, but yeah, I was drafted out of the Niagara Falls Thunder.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was your year that you had 20.
Yes.
Yeah. So draft pick out of Niagara Falls. So on an NHL, prospect depth chart, talk to us about like what that was like even at the time. Was that something that you were expecting that year? Were people telling you you should have had your name called?
So it was the year of the European invasion, right? That's the year, I believe, Nikolai Borshevsky was the year. It was 92. That was the year when I found they went European heavy. I had a good season. Podes, it's funny, right? Like I was never a legit goal scorer, right? But I had some skill, but then I had to bring some other things to the table to be effective, right?
Yep.
So 20 goals. Yeah, I played for George Burnett actually and had a good rookie season, right? 20 goals, I think 26 assists. So I was told I was going to get drafted, maybe a little bit higher. Still got drafted. Could have been, one of most proud days for my grandparents, my mom, my dad, my sister, all my friends were there. But yeah, it was great.
Look what's on the wall behind you.
Well, yeah. So you got to be proud no matter what levels you played at. You got to be proud of yourself, right? And
92 Maxwell. Love
right.
That.
That's right. So, it was junior for me. I think you have to. Junior's a big step, right? And then you get drafted, and then they want to see progression, right?
Yeah.
You got to see it go upwards, right? And if you don't do that, and you kind of flatline, it's in 2 years before you know it, you're not signing an NHL deal, right? So you got to kind of figure out, well, shit, I'm not signed. I think they offered me, if I remember correctly, I found the paperwork, I think like $15,000 at the time for a signing bonus. And my agent was like, no, hold up. We're going to get more money. What I know now, I would have taken the $15,000, got my foot in the door. Right. But you don't know, right? You just don't know at that time. And I just kind of flatlined in junior. That's the honest to God's truth, right? That's why I never signed the NHL deal with Tampa.
So if you were to go back to that, because like what an important time, and that's really like for me, it's I get a lot of joy out of working with that age group because they're all hungry, right? And they all really feel that pro or the NHL is still an option, or an option, or maybe an NCAA, whatever it is that they're chasing, right? Uh, they're arrogant enough to think that they've figured out most of the stuff, but they're also sometimes humble enough to like, with the proper guidance and advice, like, see what they don't see, and I think that there's such an amazing opportunity that's 16 to 19, to, if you can learn some of these habits, pro habits, like how to think, how to really take your own development into your own hands instead of just being a part of the environment you're in, like that you can do the thing that you're sounding like you saying you didn't do, right? So what did you learn from those 3 or 4 years after you got drafted that you could have done again, maybe a little differently?
Great question. Great question. And what I would have done differently, I would have taken it more seriously, right? And when you get drafted to the NHL, you're on cloud nine. You think that's, geez, my dream is there. No, that's just the start. They just called your name,
Yeah.
right? And if you don't put the work in, off the ice, have the right, be around the right people to direct you in the right direction, right? And this is one of the reasons, well, that I got into this advising. I wish I had some more mentorship in my life, right? Someone to say, Dennis, this, you don't need to be going out. You need to be in the gym. You need to be doing this. You need to be a good teammate. These are things you need to work on in the summer. And I didn't do that, right? I was just, yeah, I got drafted. Oh, great. Well, now the real work starts. But I didn't know that, right?
Yeah.
And when you don't put the work and the effort in, like we didn't know how to really train back then. Like I was eating Big Macs and large fries and trying to, bench press 300 pounds, right? That was the wrong thing to do, right?
What do you
And
mean? You mean really?
you're like, oh, going out, having beers, Big Macs and thinking that's for your summer, but I didn't train right, didn't take care of myself. Those are things that are, or putting yourself in better situations. Then I got traded, right? Things like that where it just snowballs, right? It
Right.
just snowballs, especially when you don't have, say someone like yourself or myself in someone's corner to say, hey, this is you're heading off in a different direction here, right? Let's stay focused, right? That's what I. It's probably
Yeah.
why I didn't do as well in junior as I should have.
Yeah, you can kind of, and that's such a personality type. I mean, there's a lot of factors involved, right? But that's one of the interesting things that I find with working with players is, like, some guys are overly hard on themselves and some guys are too easy on themselves, and then you have the guys that are more middle ground. And I think for me, identifying that when I'm working with players, and I'm sure I mean, we're almost doing the same thing, I think, in a lot of ways, right? Like, you, as an advisor, you're mentoring, you're helping, you're trying to guide the ship a little bit. And for me, like, understanding that personality is important, right? Because it sounds like you were kind of cruising, right? Like, life's good. I got 20 goals, right? I drafted the NHL. Like, why would I change anything now? Where you maybe need a little bit of a kick in the ass to say, hey, you're not even close yet, partner, right?
Sure.
Like, let's go, let's go. And I think that those looky in the eyeball moments, where someone's being honest with you is, and then the player either takes or doesn't take the info, right? But I think that those conversations are needed.
100%. And there's a buildup where, you know, I wouldn't say I was a great teammate when I was younger. I was immature, right? I probably, honest to God, Pauls, I'll be the first one to admit it. I took criticism very hard, right? There was a lot of things that I took to heart, right? And sometimes when you're not mature enough to handle those situations, you act out, right? Or and there's so many things that I wish I could have done differently. But at the end of the day, I did them and I made the bed and I lied on them and still had 14 years. Probably not the level I want it to be every year, but still finally figured out maybe around 28, 29 when it's too late, right?
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, doing what I do now, it's very important. And what you do is it's very important to with these kids, especially at the young ages, to give them the right direction, right? Or maybe even they're fighting you against it, but I think in time they're going to realize you had their best intentions and we're setting them in the right direction,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's why I love what I do.
No, 100%. Yeah. And that's why I really like, for me, it's like such a cross section because I was always, I should say, like really interested in psychology. Like I just would read it. I was always interested about it just naturally. I was always kind of the guy, if you had a couple beers, that somebody would be telling me their problems, and it'd be like, let's have a chat or whatever. Right. So I kind of was, I don't know, I was sort of that guy that would draw that type of conversation. And then you have like the history of, obviously being a player, and then you can see your own faults and your own weaknesses, like from outside the prism that you're in, and and yeah, now to go back and connect all those dots, like I really, really enjoy what I'm doing today. And like my own boys make fun of me, like they're like, "How the hell did you not play more games?" Like because they see clips and they see whatever, and old scouts will talk to them, and blah blah blah, right? But it's like, you know what? Yeah, it could have gone potentially different. Some things my fault, some things the system's fault, like whatever. It is what it is. That's life.
Yeah.
But like I wouldn't be doing this podcast right now, and I wouldn't be talking to players and helping them be better. And I think hopefully adding value to the game as a whole if I'd have millions of dollars in the bank account, right? Because I'd be freaking water skiing or fishing somewhere, right? And although that sounds good, like I really do believe in like giving, like the idea of helping and giving back is such a great spot to be in, and I think that's probably why you're doing what you're doing. I mean, like that feels good going to bed at night.
100%. And it was funny. So after I got fired from the Islanders, my wife's like, well, what are we going to do? And I was calling around, right, looking for another job in Ontario. And I'm like, listen, I'll move down to the States. And I just had this aha moment. I'm like, no, I'm moving back to Greenville, South Carolina, to be closer to my daughter. And I'm going to figure stuff out, right? And I'm driving down here, and a buddy calls me from this advising company. He's like, hey, Dennis, do you want to stick around, and do you want to get into this advising? He goes, I think you'd really, really enjoy it. I'm like, absolutely not. I'm tired of hockey, right? I was kind of just worn out, right? And
Yep.
you're trying to, you're trying to stay in on the scouting gig, and it was a great 10 years, learned a ton, but then you're just a little tired, right? And then he's like, think about the bigger picture. You can help kids. I'm like, okay, thought about it. I'm like, talk to my wife. She's like, I think you would be great at this. I think you'd love to do this. Next thing you know, here we are 4 years later, just under 4 years. And my wife said, I've never seen you happier. Coach, you gotta be in these kids' corner, right?
Yep.
You gotta know that you have someone in their corner sticking up for them, right? And like you were saying, I never realized until I actually looked in the mirror and said, you're a bit of the problem here, Dennis. Maybe it's the system. And I used to say, oh, it's the coach. The coach is trying to screw me over, right? Coaches want to win hockey games. I don't think they're in the business really of screwing kids over. They're in the business of winning. And
Yep.
if you can't help them win, then maybe I shouldn't be there, right? And I realized as I started self-reflecting in the mirror, saying, Dennis, you could have done this better. And then as you get a little older, you realize that. You say, okay, I want to play longer. You got to do this, 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 and this, right? How can you help the team win? You're going to play on the third line? Yeah, I'm going to play on the third line. Do I want to play on the third line as a 32-year-old guy? No, not really. But guess what? If I can help the team be successful, I'm going to do it, right? And that's why you see successful NHL careers, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes, like Poles, like you scored a lot of goals in junior and in the pros, right? And then there's other guys, we were discussing earlier that had great careers in NHL, but they didn't put your type of numbers up, right? Right? We look back and we say, what did these guys do that were different? I'll tell you what they did. They took on a role. They did whatever they had to do to be successful to help the team, right? And I'm like, kudos to those guys, right? Kudos to those guys for doing it, right? And I didn't figure that out for a long time.
Yeah.
Right?
No, 100%. This break in the action is brought to you by Iron Ghost Construction, platinum sponsor of the UMH 68 and friend of the Up My Hockey podcast. Iron Ghost has provided player scholarships at all four UMH 68 events, helping young athletes chase their dreams on and off the ice. Iron Ghost is where quality and safety lead every build. Since 2014, Iron Ghost has delivered quality, safe construction from structure to mechanics, start to finish. Iron Ghost, solid, skilled, and proven. A proud supporter of youth sports in their hometown of Vernon, BC, and beyond, Iron Ghost is committed to building more than just structures. They are building futures. Big fan of Iron Ghost Construction and the McKechnies. Here in Vernon, they have been a part of the Vernon Viper organization. They have been a part of youth sports here, whether it be lacrosse or Vernon minor hockey, the spring programs, my spring program, the UMH Compete, and also in the Western Canadian event of the UMH 68, which is coming to potentially a state near you. So stay tuned for that. The UMH 68, Iron Ghost has been an awesome sponsor of them. So we want to support what they're doing here in the oil fields, in forestry, in the mines. They build structures. If you need them, they will do it for you. And I hope that this word of what they're doing and how they're supporting gets out there, and you can support Iron Ghost Construction as they supported the young athletes here in Western Canada. I mean, generally speaking, parents have really good advice, I think, like grounded, good advice. And the thing is that I find with the advice is that sometimes, like when you're telling someone, what to do, if they can do it, but if there's not an authenticity behind what that thing is, even if they decide to do it, then it's not real and then it doesn't last, right? It's like a Band-Aid kind of. And the one thing that I've kind of felt, and that's where I even go, when I go back to mine, like I know my personality, right? And so we talked about a couple of the guys we used to play with doing push-ups in front of the coach's locker, right? Like that was so anti what I was,
right?
That I would actually I would do push-ups, but it would be like, I'm exaggerating, in my bedroom. You know what I mean? Like I remember one year I did go to a different gym than everybody else. Like, I don't know, like that was just my personality, right? But the thing is, like recognizing that was such a detriment to the optics of me as a hockey player,
right?
That could have crushed me, because I could have been a guy that was too aloof, right? That I was a guy that didn't care, that I was a guy that wasn't putting in the work. It wasn't that I was not prepared to put in the work. I just didn't want to do it in front of everybody else and feel like I was being a frickin' tryhard, And so that hurt me too, like the way that my perception of what that was. So like, I like talking to athletes about that. Like what is your belief about how this appears, or what is your belief about work or development or, effort. And when we get kind of to the roots of that, now all of a sudden the advice now makes sense, right? It's like, okay, this now aligns. Like I'm aligning this with who I am. I'm making a choice to actually show up a little differently, right? In a way that is going to serve me and the team, right? In both ways. And I just think people drastically underestimate the personality side of hockey. And when I say mindset, personally, like that to me is like, that's one of the things. Like personality is a big one, and the personality of the coach is a big one. If you don't understand the interpersonal dynamics between what that coach thinks and what he likes, right, to who you are, it's not his problem or your problem, but I think it's your job as a player to try and connect those dots the best you can, right? Like get what he likes, get what he gets. I was too rigid in that for sure. Like I like the interpersonal dynamics in the play. I know I undervalued that hugely, like hugely. And it's all about people. You have to be a good hockey player, of course, but it's all about people.
You're 100%, and you hit it right on the head. I see it with kids that are really successful, that I know that are talented, but they're understanding what the coach is wanting from them. And you might have to take sometimes a backseat to that, right? Of what your goals are, right? I want to play on the top two lines. Right now you can't, but he wants you to do this, this, and this, and this. Can you do it? You're going to be successful. I promise you, kid. Right. And it's hard, Jason, when you hear, you got to remember most households where kids grow up, you've been told, if you've been a pretty good hockey player, you're great. You've done a great job. And then you start moving up the ladder and you're not told you're great as much. Right. Some kids are, some kids aren't. Right. And I feel like when you move up, and it's hard, when someone says, well, you're good, but you're not that good, Dennis, right? We like you here, but we don't love you here, right? And, my job is to keep these kids motivated, because they do get cut, right? They don't understand the roles sometimes they have to play at these higher levels, right? Yeah. And my job is to make sure that, number one, they believe in themselves, right? That they're still a good hockey player. And you've got to, because when a kid gets cut, that's, I don't care what age you're at, it's a big blow, right? Yeah. Especially when you get to the junior levels and pros. And, dealing with some of these kids that are cut, I'm like, listen, You're a good hockey player. In his eyes, he just didn't see it. That's all right. So we have to get you to another place that someone sees it, right? But you got to keep believing in yourself, right? And that's just you're trying to keep these kids. You're trying to keep them grounded. You're also trying to show them the way on how to be a pro, how to get to college, all of that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what you said, Jason, most of these, you got to adapt to the coaches. You really do. And if you can figure that out, a lot of kids can be successful that are maybe not the most talented.
That was one of the first things I chatted with the team about, was like the skill I call of coachability. Like like that. And there's layers to that, right? Like you said, like you didn't like criticism. I don't think anyone really loves it, but like what do we do with that, right? Like, because if like as soon as those words start coming, and I'm sure you can put yourself back there, right? Like there's a resistance for a lot of people to hear it, and because there's that resistance, that mental internal resistance, we don't necessarily hear it because we're already having excuses in our head, or we're already giving opinions, or we're already thinking about what we want to say. Like as coming back. So like you're already screwed really in that scenario. Right. So like, and then there's the guys that will hear it, right. That they're willing to hear it, but maybe they've been told by their parents, make sure you look the coach in the eye and make sure that you nod. And so they're so focused on like doing this that they don't even really understand what the hell was actually said to them. And they're not really sure how they're supposed to implement it. Right. And then the idea of if you can implement or execute it, how long can you do it for consistently? Right. There's so many layers to being coachable, because what does a coach want to see? He wants to see you do it again and again and again and again and again and again. And he doesn't want to have to tell you 5 times. Now there's like how many things I just talk about there that are skills that nobody fricking talks to these players about, or gets them to build about, or gets them to think about.
That's right.
Right. Like it's way beyond whether you want to listen even or don't want to listen, but that's the starting point. You know what I mean?
It's so right. And just to touch on that, I remember I would see guys that would get benched, right? And they would be rah, rah, rah. I'd get benched. I'd be sulking in the corner, right?
Yeah.
If I missed a couple shifts, or I did this, and I'd looking back at the coach when the power play's going, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And you didn't realize the damage you were really doing, right? Honestly, folks. And I didn't realize that. And in my mind, I'm like, no, I'm a power play guy. Oh, they just want me to fight. No. But you're just like, no. And I remember this. And what it does is it carries with you for a period of time, right? Until someone sees that, you've matured, you've done this. And I remember I was playing in the Central Hockey League, and I'll say his name. He was coaching me at the time. His name was Paul Fixter. And I wasn't playing very well, right? Wasn't playing very well. He says, you need to sit down. No problem. Sat down on the bench, rah, make sure every guy, because I was at an age where I understood, right?
Yeah.
I can help the team by being a good teammate, or I can sit on the bench and still, because I'm 33 years old or 32 years old, and whine and complain to all these young guys, mate, right?
Yeah.
So I did that. He comes out to me after the second period, didn't play me a shit, comes out to me, goes, you're effing back in the lineup. You're playing in the third, right?
Yeah.
Because you are a good teammate. And I'm just trying, you just haven't been very good this last probably week and a half, right? But didn't whine, didn't complain, right? But that was 32. It was 32.
Right.
Right? You're sitting here saying, like, some of these kids can do it. I've got some kids here that have been pretty successful because they have the right mindset. I'm not playing on the power play. Don't look at the coach. Don't look over your shoulder. Don't give him the attitude like, yeah, I could score right now. He's not worried about that. He's trying to win a hockey game, right?
Yeah.
Right. And Poles, I wish I could have scored more goals, because then I probably wouldn't have had to fight, right? But that didn't happen. So you gotta figure out, that happy medium, right?
Yeah. You like fighting.
Buddy, I figured out at a younger age, you can't go toe to toe. Like, I see these guys, there's a lot of tough guys out there, right? I was never a guy. Guys ask me, well, how do you think? Listen, I was smart. I tried to technical fight you because I know I couldn't go toe to toe with the big guys, right?
Yeah.
So I had to be smart. Let's tie a guy up, tire him out. Let's just work him out for a little bit. Let's not try to go toe to toe with a Goddard or a Zdeno Chara or a Scott Parker.
Probably
right?
a bad idea.
Probably a bad idea.
Yeah.
Only a few guys I saw do it when they were younger, and one of them was Sean Thornton. Like that, you remember the year? What do you have? 35 fights that year we played with him. hit
300
41. I'm
something.
like, geez, Louise.
Yeah.
Every night. Like,
Yeah.
I was just like, golly, I can't do
That's tough.
that. Right?
You know what? Okay, so I love you. Okay, so what you just talked about there, and I'm gonna push back a little bit on it just because the you played long enough and I played long enough to know, and this is where I'm gonna get like focus again on the personality side of the game. Because I played for coaches, and this is where the game gets to be a game. I played for coaches that wanted you to be pissed off and look back at them and challenge them. And then there's guys that don't want anything to do with that, right? And you're the biggest, but you're the baddest teammate. I had a coach that when I finally went into his office, and I thought this guy fricking essentially hated me. Like he was like challenging me and doing all this stuff, and I went into his office and we motherfucked each other, and like that was the best thing I could ever done. And I thought I was being the most disrespectful. Like I finally got to a point where I was broke, right? I was like, no, like not anymore. And that's what he wanted to see the whole time was like this level of like fire. Like that's old school coaching, but I'm still saying they exist, right? And like that's what he wanted. And yet there's might be a guy like Al McAdam that would have despised that, right? Like quiet Al, like, he didn't even want to have a conversation. I wrote him, like we won't get into that. But all I'm saying is, so we're talking with figureheads, right, that are in control of the situation, that are people with their own personalities, with their own likes and dislikes,
Right.
that have an idea of what should happen. And now we're supposed to be navigating that as players. And there is a piece of the navigation, there's a piece of the navigation because there might be a coach out there that if you get benched and you're like smiley and cheery, it might be like, this guy doesn't even care that he's benched.
You're right. There's this double-edged sword, right? Because
Right. Right.
there were a lot of coaches back then that wanted to get you angry. They wanted to
Yeah.
get you upset, and sometimes and I hate to say this, but this is how I kind of seen it. I wasn't that good that I had that freedom to say something to a coach,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And I felt that when I did that, they thought I was a prima donna, right? Or I thought I was better. And I probably did. I thought I was always thought I was could play hockey, right?
Yeah.
But if someone like yourself maybe went in there who was a big part of the team, a big, an up and coming, let's say, prospect, you might get away with a little bit more by saying things like that or not, right? Where I felt that I was kind of borderline. Well, you're not that good, Dennis. We can get rid of you quicker than we can look at you, right?
Right.
And you're valuable to an extent. So know your role, right? Figure it out and be a part of the team, right?
Yeah. 100%.
And I just think it's like anything. There's some kids that get leeway. I've got kids that I rep now, and they're like, "Well, Dennis, this guy's playing on the power play." Just everybody calm down. There's probably reasons why, right? You just haven't got there yet, right? But I know we all want it now, right? We all want it now,
Yeah.
and there's a process, and there's things that you have to do, but you're right. There was coaches that loved when I fought, but then there was coaches like, I don't need you, running around taking back, which was true.
Yeah.
Right. There was this fine line of who the guys I played for that I really got along with or didn't get along with. Right.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of mind games back then.
Well, and just to like what I'm trying to emphasize is like you brought in some hockey elements, and hockey is of course at play, but there's so much that is non-hockey related to the decisions that get made about what ice time you get and where you play, right? That's my whole thing is like that gets so underestimated. Like to your point, Maxie, I scored 42 goals. I was leading the AHL in goals at 22 years old. I got 3 games with a non-playoff team, Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yes.
Could you imagine that happening now?
I remember, and I think Adam Mayer might have got called up. Was he playing with us then?
Well, but okay. So then, what's the disconnect?
I know, and it's that's the problem, right? Because a lot of guys there's guys that get called up that you're probably looking and going, well, why? Or another kid gets called up before another kid who's had a great month of hockey, but he doesn't get called up. I don't know if it's because he's been drafted higher. I don't know if he's in the plans. Nobody knows, right?
Yeah.
Right? Nathan Dempsey, right? Remember back then, like you were a top scorer in Lonnie Bohannes, right? If I remember correctly, right?
Yeah.
I think Lonnie got called up at the end of the year, right?
And did amazing.
He did amazing in the playoff run, but he
Yeah.
wasn't called up. Remember when
Yeah.
he first came down, Poets? Like didn't want to be there,
Yeah.
right? He just was laying around. Oh, we got a game tonight. Oh, okay, big deal, right? Only guy I've ever seen go out and then he's like, "Oh, you guys want to win tonight?" And he gets 3 points, 4 points. We win the game, right?
Yeah.
But it's funny, right? When you look at it and you just don't know what their plans are, right? You're
Yeah.
right. I don't know the rhyme or reason, right? Why you
Yeah.
didn't get called up when you were on fire.
Well,
I
probably,
think you,
but
I think you just need
that's
to
my
learn
thing.
how to score in goals.
Yeah, but it's I think it is like when you talked about that, it's like the optics of what of the person in that scenario. Like, and again, I was so focused, and that's the thing that I try and steer guys away from is like, yes, we want to perform, however that is that you perform in whatever role you have. You mean if you're face off guy, win face offs, right? You're a PK guy, do great on the PK. You're score goals. You have to perform on the ice. But I just thought that was it. You know what I mean? That was it. If I was a guy that did what I was supposed to do on the ice,
Correct.
then those players move on. But there's so much more to it than that, right? Like, did Al McAdam like me? Why did he or didn't he like me? What was he saying to the guys up top? Right? Like, what was the message coming from our assistant coach? Did I have a good relationship with them? Did they think I was out too much? Did I think I showed up too late? Did they think I didn't stay long enough? Right? Did they think I cared about the team? I don't know what their perception was. I'm guessing that those were all probably negative factors for me, right? That I presented in a way that they didn't feel that was okay because everything else was in line, right?
Well, yeah. Well, I would say yeah, and you're right. But if I was, this is just my perception. Let's just say about yourself, right? I would have never thought that, right? I would have thought that you were a guy that they appreciated, right? I would have thought that they were a guy that they looked upon, because a lot of times we look at it like the playing time a guy's getting if the coach really likes him, right?
Yeah.
Or but it's hard because you would see someone like yourself. I think Cone got some games that year. Ladislav Cone, remember Coner,
Yeah. Corner. Yeah.
right? But was but I look and you're right. I don't know what the perception was of you, but I there was no reason in my mind you couldn't have played somewhere else like Nathan Dempsey,
Yeah.
right? And been successful. I don't know. I wish I had answers for that, right? And you
Yeah.
could right
Oh,
to
it's yeah. It's
figure that
such a
out,
puzzle.
right?
It's such a puzzle. But I mean, and again, I didn't mean to make that about me, but
No,
that's where my excitement has come from, like this other side of like shining a light on just aligning, right? You want to give yourself the best opportunity possible. To be the best player you have to be. And that's really where I start with everything, right? Like you need to maximize your potential as an individual
right.
to get to wherever it is you want to go. That's going to give you the best opportunity, right? So, how do we talk about that in a way that puts you in control of your own development destiny? One, right? And then two, to understand the bigger picture of the game, that the hockey is definitely not just about hockey,
Right.
right? Like you need to stack blocks on blocks to give yourself the best. And they still might not fucking go right.
Well, I've always said this, Podes, and I honestly believe this. Hockey's a beautiful sport, but it's a shitty business.
Yeah.
And I say this to everyone. And you got to kind of, navigate through all of this, right? And there's no, we were talking about Kevin Adams. Look at the career he had, Kevin Adams, right? Didn't put huge numbers up, but what he did is he did a lot of different. I felt he had a ton of intangibles, right?
Yeah.
And when you look at guys like that, or someone like I'm just using guys that we played with, right? Sean Thornton, who played 600 games, I believe, in the American Hockey League and 6 in the NHL. Like, come on,
Yeah.
right? He was barely playing, but he was fighting his way to the top, and he was a good teammate, and
Two cup.
all of it, right? 2 time, right? 2 time Stanley Cup champion, yeah. And when I look back, and I was like, but we used to party. Like, I remember Al's wife came up to me one night. She's like, Dennis, you mind taking a night off? I knew I was never getting called up. I knew I
Yeah.
was never, right? Like, take a night off from going out here tonight, Dennis, right? We got a big game tomorrow, right? But it's just the things that, you look at, and I'll be honest, I didn't know if Sean Thornton would play 600 games in the NHL and win 2 Stanley Cups,
Yeah. Oh God, no.
right? I didn't, there was guys that I'd look at and be like, yeah, Then you're like, wow, And I just kind of model, and I've learned a lot from playing with a lot of different teams, Poles. I've been on a few different teams. I've taken a lot in, and I try to use that with my kids, right? I
Yeah.
got the t-shirt in the closet of probably what not to do,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right? And you try to come across where you're like, hey, this is how you can be effective. This is how you can do this. This is how you to give yourself every opportunity to be successful. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't know at what level that's going to be, but I'm trying to set you up to be successful at any opportunity that might come your way.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, if you took at those, like, so the three players from that team, which is actually interesting, even to do that little like investigation, that played the most games was Sean Thornton, who fought his way essentially into the NHL and would do whatever was required. Like, so that's why I would kind of define him. He was somebody that was going out all the time. He'd be the first to admit, I mean, that was just part of what he was. But I think that was part of his mental makeup too. Like, it didn't matter. Like, he'd go out and he would show up. He would go out and he would show up. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't, he was kind of a pro when it came to that, like
Yeah.
just that nothing would affect him. He was so consistent when it came to everything. And then we had Kevin Adams, who he was a first rounder, but I didn't see him as a high skill guy, but he fricking was a pro, right? Like the way that he always early, always a team guy, always, didn't go out very much, like kept to himself, kind of seemed like he always had his eye on the target of what he wanted to do, and correct me if I'm wrong with any of these guys. And the other guy was Nathan Dempsey, who at that time, what, a 25-year-old captain or a 24-year-old captain in the AHL, like that's the kiss of death. You know as best as I do. An AHL captain at that age, like you're already like you're not considered a prospect at all at that point. And it wasn't like he was lighting up the AHL by any stretch of the imagination, but this was a good human being that had his head in the right spot, that was a pro from day one, and kept trying to get better. Like that was my perception of what I remember for him. And then all of a sudden he goes and plays 400 or 500 games after we left. Like, I wouldn't classify those three guys as the best players on our team.
100%.
This episode is powered by BioSteel, main sponsor of the UMH68 and friend of the Up My Hockey podcast. BioSteel is the hydration choice trusted by pros and parents alike. And now it's even easier to grab. The new BioSteel Variety Pack is available at Costco, Canada. You get 24 bottles, 3 flavors, Rainbow Twist, Blue Raspberry, and Black Cherry. All with no sugar, no caffeine, and no junk. Just clean, effective hydration that works as hard as you do. Now, I don't know if BioSteel is available at Costco in the U.S., but if you are in Canada, by all means, go out and grab some. And if you aren't getting it at Costco in the States, you can definitely get BioSteel at biosteel.com or biosteel.ca. They do have ongoing programs there, and as an affiliate of them, I definitely use their product. We use it all the time here at the house. They've been great to work with as far as from a promotional standpoint, supporting the UMH 68, and why not support somebody that supports youth hockey in that capacity? I think it's a great option. Hydration is important, and BioSteel does their part. So go out there and grab your BioSteel today.
100%. I'll be the first to one. I used to be the guy, like I look at ads, you little geek here, your little coaches. You know what? Didn't care. He didn't care. He put the work in. He put the time in.
Yeah.
I tell my kids now, does it matter? Does it matter when you go into the gym? Are you worried about what you worry about what you're doing, right? You worry about when they tell you to do 12 reps, you do 15, 18 reps. You don't have to make fun of other guys that aren't, that are putting in the hard work. Because let's be honest, Coach, you get to these levels here and these kids, they go, oh, look at this guy, he's the coach's pet. Because what? He's working hard.
Yeah.
He's putting the time in, he's putting the effort in because he wants to be successful, right? You don't learn that until you get a little older because these kids can be, or you get a group, in a room, there's guys that hang out here, there's guys that hang out here, right? And you're like, oh, look at him, right? You're like, no, he's doing it the right way. Let's listen to that guy. And I'll tell you that, and this is one of my favorite. So when I was scouting with the Islanders, I wanted to draft Kyle McLean. Okay. And to me, at that level of junior A, so he was drafted out of Oshawa, okay? And he played for Oshawa. He wasn't drafted to the NHL, okay? And I
Okay.
wanted to draft him. And he was a guy that probably put up, I think, 40, 50 points in the OHL, right? But
Pedestrian.
pardon me?
Pedestrian for draft picks. Like you're just saying, like doesn't jump off the stat sheet at you.
100%.
Right.
But he had everything that I felt that this kid, if you want a guy on your team, for me, I said when we were in the draft room, I said, I really like this kid. And I think we should draft him, sixth or seventh round. And I wouldn't say, I didn't know that obviously we were going to sign him as a free agent, okay, in the summer, right? But that was just on an American League deal. I don't know any of this, right?
Yeah.
But he was the first kid that I had seen in a long time in the scouting that we just overlook those guys because they're not sexy. They're not sexy. They're not, like you said, a pedestrian. But I said he's going to probably be in your American Hockey League. He's probably going to be your captain. He's going to teach these prospects the right way to play.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
To me, those guys are still hard to find. And when they are, you hold on to them. Right? The Casey Cizikas of the world. Right? Those are guys, to me, those are glue guys. Right? And Kyle McLean, for me, was one of those guys. But I wanted to get him drafted because I felt we had to get some of these guys that played like him a little bit of love. Right?
Yeah.
Well, he signed a 3-year deal with the Islanders. No, that's what I'm talking about, right?
Right.
But you know what you're getting every night. And that's a guy that works his ass off. Everybody I talked to, and I remember, like, I just loved the way he played because he just wasn't, I hate to say this, Paul, but some guys that are really offensively skilled and all of it, it's come easy. Some have put the work in, right? But it's nice when you see a kid like, McLean be very successful,
Yeah.
right?
How do you
Right?
not? How do you not like that?
How do you not like that, right?
Yeah.
And I've got some kids like that, and I'm in their corner 100% because I know they're not the most skilled, but I know what they bring to the table, right?
Yeah.
For the
Yeah.
team,
I love
right?
that. Yeah, he won't mind me talking about him because I've had him on as a guest, but like so Luke Buss is a guy that I've been working with for a couple of years now. I don't know if you know the name, but he was out of the BCJ. Um, that's when we started working together. He had been dropped by his university. He had kind of at the last chance as an overage to make something happen. He had a rough start in Vernon, when he came back. Then he ended up getting traded to Nanaimo. And boom, takes off like a rocket ship. Like ends up being, top 5 in goals, top 10 in points. Ends up going to Wisconsin, like his dream school where his dad went to, the whole 9 yards. Like kind of salvaged his overage year, and so we worked together that whole BCJ year, and then last year as well at Wisconsin. But Wisconsin didn't go like the way he wanted it to. Right? It was like 15th forward, like. Not I think he might have played 2 games and 3 shifts in the games and was defense in practice when he was a forward because one of their D-men got hurt. So he was practicing as a D-man all year. Not at all the year that he wanted, right? In any stretch, in any capacity. But guess what he did? He frickin' showed up every frickin' day. Every frickin' day. He did the extra every Sunday, he did all the things that we're talking about, right? With a smile on his face. And it wasn't always easy, right? But he gave himself the best chance to develop in that environment under the circumstances that he was given. And at the end of the year, the coach had gained so much respect for him. He was like, you know what? Like, I just don't know if there's going to be a place next year just on this team and who we're bringing in for you. But I want to go to bat for you. And let's see what can happen here. And anyways, and he's at Union this year. And he's like that would have never have happened, right? Ever. One, he wouldn't have got better. 2, he wouldn't have earned the respect from his coaches and stuff, to help him, find a spot to go to be willing to answer the phone call, right? To say, and yeah, this is a guy that you want on your team. Like we wish we could have him. Like you want this guy. And so now he's earned that next chance, right? Because of the things that he did, the choices that he made with how he wanted to take control of his development. And how do you not fall in love with that story? How do you not fall in love with that kid? You're right. And that's the difference again. There's where people come into the hockey game, right? Like how you show up and the people that are around you that see that are now your supporters that are part of your dream, a part of your goal. It's not just you. There has to be other people involved in it. And he got other people involved in it. Not because he was pretentious, not because he was fake, because he was authentically did the right thing. There's so much value in that.
There's so much value. And your coaches, for me are some of your biggest advocates, right? and they can kind of, because they call, these colleges call, or the pros, they call, they talk to the coach. And if you're not that kid where he's like, I know that there's been polls when let's say it's Toronto called down to the St. John's Maple Leafs, that the coach is going to say, who's going to make me look good, who's going to make me right. There's other factors, like you're saying,
Yeah.
behind the scenes that we don't know about, right?
Yeah.
And I've been called just on players when I was, coaching, and I'd get called on players, and I'd be like, I would be pushing the guys that I knew would do well, or you know, let me retract that. When I was with the New York Islanders, they would ask, put a list together, right, of players that you think would be good free agents, right? And at the start, when I first started, I used to try to go for skill, right? I'd say, okay, a kid that maybe, I'd look at, I'd watch him during the year, and I'd be like, okay. And it's not that they would let me down, but they didn't have some of the other intangibles.
Right.
Not all of them, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Most of those kids get drafted, okay? But I found that I would push more on the skill set, and then I would find out that after a while would be the guys that did a lot of the other things that were more successful when I sent them to camp, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, it was just weird. It was, I can't put a finger on it to say, but the kids that were really skilled, that worked really hard, they were successful. But I found that the kid that was always overlooked, and I got him to camp, coaches were always very happy with him. I can't tell you why,
Yeah.
right? But there's this difference of players,
Yeah.
you know.
And there
I
again,
see.
go
Yeah,
ahead.
like
Go ahead.
I like Sean Dursey pods. Like I sent Sean Dursey was a kid that I wanted to go to camp with the Islanders. He didn't do well, but he's making $5 million a year in his team now in
Yeah.
Utah,
Yeah.
right? There was a kid that I liked, but I saw those things in him, right? I saw those things. I'm like, man, this kid can play,
Yeah.
right? And a testament to himself, he did it, right? But I'd send some other kids to camp, and I'd get the phone call, oh, this kid didn't really work too hard at training camp or whatever. You're like, oh boy, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm gonna find those guys that are dogs on a bone. I mean, sorry, right?
Yeah.
I mean, those are the guys I want.
Yeah.
Who are going to give themselves every opportunity to make the club. If that's on the American League, East Coast, those are the guys I'm looking for.
Yeah. Those habits are
Just
huge.
habit.
Yeah. And those, I mean, you said like the phone call, like I think that's worth talking about, because whether it's an NCAA recruiting school to to a junior program, or whether it's like the scenario that I already talked about, you're in the AHL and the GM calls down and asks, like these guys answering the phone, they're not in the business of lying for you,
Correct.
because it exposes them, right? Like they have to be honest, right? So whatever that honesty, wherever that comes from, like they're going to be honest, because their job is essentially, and their integrity is on the line with it. They're not going to promote somebody they don't believe in, because that just makes them look bad. Or they're not going to say, no, this kid's dialed, I mean, he works hard and he works hard all the time. And then you show up and you can't even find the kid in the weight room. I mean, it's like, what the hell's that? I mean, why would you? So they don't say that, is my point to you,
Right.
to you athletes listening out there, right? Like
Right.
people who are around you every day see your habits. They see what you're like. They see what you're like with your teammates, with the staff that are involved, all the rest of that. And that is what gets portrayed on the other end of the phone call, period. Right?
100%. 100. And those coaches will not lie. I will not lie when I call a coach. Okay. Because they will not pick the phone up when I call them again. If I tell them that you're a top 6 forward and you get there and you're not a top 6 forward, he won't pick the phone up again.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, Poets, I had one of my first clients when I first started. His dad was saying to me, and loved the kid, but he's like, well, Dennis, he can play in a top 6. I'm like, he's not. I can't call coaches up. My credibility will be shot. And I have to think about the kids that I have coming through that I have to worry about as well, right? I can't lie to a coach. He won't do business with me again. It'll only hurt my business and my players, right? And I've learned a lot. Like I'm every day, you're dealing with, all these different levels. And like you said, coaches don't lie. They, hey, maybe they'll say something to a guy and he'll take a guy in, maybe, but their credibility is on the line, right? Their credibility, all of it. And that's how I feel in this business. I can't lie. Every kid has deficiencies.
Yeah.
But it's all, to me, it's all workable, right? All these kids, they're young, they're immature, they still have to work on certain aspects of their game, but they all have some deficiency and they all got positives that you're like, wow. Now, I just have to tell you that, but I can't lie to you about that,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
So
not if you do a good job. Not if
that's
you. I mean, that's the thing that there are guys, and that's probably part of the problem too, because there is some snakes out there, and they just hop to different jurisdiction to jurisdiction and find a new coach. But like the guys that have been in a while, and the guys that have good reputations, like they're acting exactly how you just said. You're just being honest. The network matters, right? The honesty, the credibility, the integrity matters, and even that, like I'm sure that you said that to your guys too, like the guys that I work with that I believe in, I'm said I'll fricking break doors down for you if I believe in you, like. But if you don't, you don't haven't earned my trust, like if you can't show up for my call or if you can't, get whatever work done, like what am I calling? What am I making phone calls for? Like.
Buddy, you summed it up, and that's a lot of things that I say to the kids. You got to be committed. I can't be calling teams. Like I had a kid, he when things weren't going his way, he wanted to get traded, and I'm like, yeah, okay, that's great, but I can only do this maybe one or two times, and then we got to start looking in the mirror here and say that you need to stay here because I get the questions now when teams call me, what's the problem? What's the problem with the kid? Why has he moved around so much? Right?
Yeah.
What's going on? Is it an issue with him, or is it he's just not good enough? Right? And then you have to protect your kid, and you have to tell them these are the reasons why. So, but you have to have these hard discussions with your client and say to them, hey, we don't need to be moving around because you just didn't get on the power play this weekend. We don't need to ask for a trade, right? We got to figure out how you can get better. Like you're talking back to our conversation 30 minutes ago about knowing what the coach wants, all of it, right? What you have to do extra. A lot of times with these kids, Pods, you say to them, you say, are you doing all these things that we discussed? And they go, well, yeah. Well, are you on the bike every day before the coach gets there consistently? Are you in the weight room? Are you the guy turning the radio on? Or are you actually putting the work in? Or are you the radio guy who plays around with and doesn't really get any work done? Right? That's the truth, right? Like
Yeah.
I've been there,
Yeah.
right? Are you putting the time in where the coach says, yeah, like you said, you can wear coaches down by your work ethic and what you said about that kid earlier, Bus, right?
Yeah.
Where a coach basically says, like, I don't think we can have you here, but I really want you here.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate where a guy's going, the coach is going, you are a pro.
Yeah.
You're everything that he's just doing it somewhere else now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
Right. And I see those kids, and when they do that, they just seem to be successful. I just see it. Right. I don't know what you would say there, but I just seem to see those guys, they seem to be successful.
There's a place for them. I'll tell you that right now. I mean, someone's going to want you somewhere. And again, to my point is like, you want to be the best that you can be. That's part of the way that you have to be, like that has to be the perception. This episode is also brought to you by Elite Prospects. Elite Prospects is the gateway to hockey. Online since 1999, EliteProspects.com is the #1 statistical hockey resource, serving over 1 million unique visitors weekly. It offers the most informative hockey player database on the web and has the most reliable transaction tracker available. And specifically for youth hockey players, EP is your very own online showcase to highlight your achievements and help secure hockey future playing opportunities. Coaches, scouts, and schools at every level of the game consider Elite Prospects their one-stop shop to discover future stars. They do have their verified profiles. They do have their premium profiles. My boys have them. It's a very cool way to see who is following your page, to be able to include your accurate height and weight, where you're from, hometown, etc. Your personal profile picture. It's a great way to track your own statistics and for others to track what you are doing. As a bonus, as being a sponsor and I guess sponsor is the right word with the UMH 68. The people who play in my tournament get their tournament stats up and running on their player profile at Elite Prospects. So Elite Prospects has been fantastic to work with. They're definitely involved in the youth and amateur aspect of the game, and are really growing their roots there. So big fan of Elite Prospects and what they're doing. By all means, go out and see what they're up to, and get your profile verified, or get a premium profile from them as well. And that's that whole growth mindset versus fixed mindset that I, from a psychology standpoint, that I've just fallen in love with the growth mindset side of like the choice involved with being growth mindset oriented. And there was a lot of ways for me personally where I was fixed mindset oriented, like more like if you have more skill, then you should be perceived as not needing to work as hard. Like that wasn't something that I could actually articulate it at the time, but that's how I was more wired, right? Like
Right.
I am better. So because of that scenario, I don't need to work as hard. Not that I didn't work hard. I don't think anyone would ever say I was lazy. That's what I mean. Like, but like it would be the optics of what that looked like, right? Like that I can still go out and I can still score 3 goals. That I can still show up to practice frickin' 5 minutes before it starts and score 3 goals. Do you know what I mean? Like that was where I felt, again, not consciously, but that's the way I was just wired at the time. Right. And now knowing that, undoing that, understand like the growth mindset principles of actually like committing to loving the idea of being the hardest worker as well as the most skilled guy. Right. Imagine combining those two attributes. Imagine being the guy that's most committed to your development as well as the guy that has the quickest release. You know, like you keep adding value, and like, and seeing that actually supports you as an athlete. And then also, again, optically, as a human, right? As your personality, like, boy, like now you're double ending things. And again, like you don't know that. You don't know, like I didn't know the difference. I didn't even know what fixed mindset was or growth mindset, right? And I didn't realize that there was ever a choice. It's totally a choice. It's so fun, right? And it's like, what buttons do you have to push for these guys to get them to see that? And when it does come, it's like, that's where you start seeing, like for me, I legitimately, with some athletes, you can see, like, I'm talking double digit, like kind of performance gains when you can just like either unlock, untap, have them see something differently. That boom, it's an explosion, because like you're not going to make someone skate faster in 2 weeks, but if you can undo or unlock something like mentally with how they approach either their preparation or their performance or their effort or their compete or their courage or something along those lines, it's like, wow, blossom. That's so fun.
It's crazy, right? How that can happen. And you know, Paul, it's what you're doing here. I love it. And I think these kids need it. And I'm a big a believer that the more you can work with yourself, right? Like there's only so much I can do, right? But and then there's someone like yourself who's bringing just a different element on the mindset, right? Right. It's great. I wish we had these tools when we were growing up, right?
Oh shit, yeah.
You know, and
You know what the funny thing is though? Like, I don't know if like you have to be willing to receive it too, right? Like I don't know. I was so wired. Like again, I don't know why I'm talking about me so much. I usually don't, but like I guess it's relevant, I think, to this conversation. But like I was very island solo oriented now looking back too, right? Like it was my journey. I was in control. I almost like felt like I didn't need help. I want, like I was, and I'm kind of that way with my business, to be honest. Like I don't have any employees. Like I've always just been driving. So I haven't even kind of got away from that. But that was the kind of way I was wired. Like my dad offered Tony Robbins to me at 19 after the draft, like to help, like, you know, like he was up and coming, but he was still a big freaking deal. And I said, no, I'm good. You're like, that's an idiot. Like I would say yes right now in a heartbeat. Like I would say yes in a heartbeat right now. Right. So you, like, to your point, you have to be willing though too, right? You can lead the horse to water, as they say, but you can't make him drink. So even though we say that we wish we had the tools, I don't know if I would have taken them.
I know. It's times have changed, and you got to be up with the times, right? And you got to give yourself every opportunity to get that extra edge. And if that's the mindset, if that's the advisor, or if that's the work, it all to give yourself that edge, because it's very competitive out there, right?
Yeah.
And especially with these new changes with the NCAA, it's tough. It's tougher, but we can still make things happen, right?
Yeah, I agree.
And you got to believe in yourself, and you know, I got into this business because I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to be in a kid's corner and know that I got their back, because I know to navigate through this, it's tough, right? When you have parents saying, "Hey, Dennis, this camp, and everyone's pulling on their, you got to come here and spend $500. You got to do this. You got to do this. I get it. You know, I've had kids traded, tendered, let go, right? It's all part of the business, right? But you still got to navigate to make sure these kids are in good situations,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's my job. And I
Yeah.
love it, buddy. I love what I do, and I'm learning. I'm, loving being on this podcast and kind of talking shop here. And
Wasn't it awesome? I love it too.
shit, I wish you had been in the mindset business a while ago when I was still playing, but um, it's
Oh yeah. Well,
it's
that's
it,
yeah, frick. It's so funny. Like that's again, like and I think even talking about that, like how you were, like even you talked about how you didn't like, feedback or criticism, right? Like that's one thing to say. Well, Dennis, just listen to it. Dennis, just listen to it. Maxie, come on, just listen to it. Or it's like a parent saying, well, don't pressure. Well, don't worry about it. Don't look at it like pressure. Well, I mean, it's great advice, but it's
right.
like, how do you actually do that? You know?
So you're right, and Poles. When I say criticism, there's a lot of things. I was a sensitive kid. I
Yeah.
had this bravado about me, but inside I was an insecure person, right?
Yeah.
And as you get older, I always had the bravado to make sure that that was just masking that I was insecure, right? And as you get older and you start to get past all of that, and you're like, okay, and then you start looking in self-reflection on, I could have been this, I could have done this better. You got to look back. But yeah, I've called up some coaches that I've been with, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I was an asshole, right?
Yeah.
You start to self-reflect, right?
Yeah.
And buddy, I go to, like, it's funny, I'm not afraid. As I've gotten older, I go to therapy. I talk with a therapist, and we talk about things and talk about your inner self, and you know, growing up and
Yeah.
things, right? You start to just evolve,
Yeah.
right? And I do this because it just makes me a better person, right? It just makes me, I feel that I'm learning a lot more about myself, that I feel that I can help with kids along down the road,
Yeah.
right? That's why, right?
No, it's unbelievable. And that's what like when I use the word mindset, like I just kind of think that it's approachable, right? Because like I don't qualify myself as a mental performance coach really because I'm not there's no academia behind what I'm doing other than being self-read, right? Like I don't have any degrees or certifications.
Right.
Mindset to me though is like closer to what I do, but really it's personal development. Like I think like when I'm working with athletes, a lot of it is like the ability to self-assess and the forcing them to self-assess in different categories, right? Not only just their game, which is a huge skill for players.
Right.
Like, did you actually play well or not? And where did you play well? And why were you successful or not? Like understanding that, understanding their identity, understanding some of these intangibles that we're talking about, like their coachability. Like, were you ever asked how coachable you were? Or let's say how competitive you were? Or
Yeah.
let's say, how resilient you were? Like these are all fun, great words, but are you good at them? And what do they even mean? Right. And if you do score poorly on it, let's freaking go to work at it because there's ways to actually improve that.
Right.
So, like, what is that? I could call it mindset, but it's really like what you're talking about is that's personal development. How do you get better as a human to make you better as a hockey player?
Right.
And the more that you stack those blocks on, like that's some juice, man. And that's really where I have a lot of fun with it because at the end of the day, and I'm sure you're in the same spot. Like these players want to be hockey players, fantastic. I want them to be hockey players too. I want them to play for as long as they can, make as much money as they can. But if we're working on the human behind the hockey player, guess what? That continues on
That's right. That's right.
after the skates are put away. And that's what makes our game a better place. Like you build better humans, better teammates, better contributors. Yeah, they're helping themselves, but they're also helping themselves long term. And that's, obviously there's no losing in that one.
There's no losing, and we're not all going to play D1. We're not all going to play pro hockey, and these are just some life lessons that hopefully are going to be successful with,
Yeah.
with the right mindset, in the real world, right?
Right.
In the
Yeah.
real world. I love it. I love that you brought me on here today, and no, buddy, I don't want to do anything else. I love what I do.
Yeah.
It's always new, right? It's always a new experience,
Yeah.
right? Meeting a kid, working with a kid, the family, right? I've had some kids go off to college now, and I can't wait to get to their first games, right? So I can be there, right?
Yeah.
This is stuff that when I was younger, I just kind of sometimes wish I had, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh, for sure. I
you know.
agree. I agree. No,
It's,
man, like, well, maybe like just quickly, I know I'm running out of time. I gotta get out of here because I have to hit to practice. But like, share with me why an advisor is good, and maybe share with us why sometimes the experiences aren't so good. What makes your job add value, and how can it also not be the color that it's supposed to be sometimes?
yeah. So that's a great question. So kind of how it is, how I look at it is, listen, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. Okay. There's good lawyers, bad lawyers, good, in between. But you need someone, and I've said this and I kind of touched on it. You need someone advocating for you. Okay. Because in the business we're in, there's a lot of guys that are just, trying to collect money or do this or do that. And there's the bigger agencies, there's in between, and then there's, I wouldn't say bottom feeders, but I would say just, on the lower end, right? I feel that you add a value because you got to have connections as well, right? You got to have the conversations, the real conversations with guys that I believe sometimes when you're dealing with a coach, if he trusts you on what you've said to him or sold him in the past, maybe that only helps your kids, right? And I think a lot of guys would probably say the same. You got to have the right connections, right? To put the kid in the right position to be successful. I know there's coaches out there, Podes, that they won't take a smaller guy, right? Or vice versa. Or I know what certain coaches are looking for, right? That's the things that I need to weed out for my client. That's
Right.
kind of my value that I would say that you have to bring to the table, right? You got to protect them. Kids get let go, kids get, traded, whatever. You got to make sure that it's the right situation, right?
Yeah.
Because kids have a lot of leverage now. I know
Yeah.
that's hard for coaches, especially, some guys I deal with, but they have leverage now. We didn't have leverage back in the day, right?
Yeah.
Especially with these pay to play models and things like that, right? It's just a little different now, the landscape. But you have to have a value that they feel that you can get them hopefully to where they want to go. Sometimes it's great, but sometimes their expectations are too high and you have to temper their expectation. This is where I see your son or your daughter, right? And I think there's sometimes that they need to come down where you have to have the hard conversations that
Yeah.
everyone would. I don't sugarcoat things. I have to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I would rather do that. And if I lost you as a client, that's okay. All right. But that's how I do business, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think you have to be honest. You got to be a straight shooter and you got to protect these kids, right? You got to be in their corner. Don't say you're going to be in their corner, be in their corner,
Right.
right?
Yeah, I like that.
And protecting them because they all need help and guidance. Because I hate to say this, but these kids can be taken advantage of, and I've seen it. Right? They can, and I'm not talking at maybe the higher levels, but at some of these other levels, they can be taken advantage of. There's some coaches don't call me when I represent a kid; they go right to the kid. Do I love that? No, because I know you're trying to get in the kid's ear, right? Because you're telling him this is the best scenario for him, right? Instead of calling me and saying, hey, Dennis, here's the situation. Let's talk about this. Great. I'll take this back to the family. We'll talk about it. Here's our options,
Yeah.
right? Things like that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That I
That's an
just,
interesting question. How do you handle? How do you like how? And I'm assuming, maybe I'm wrong, that it would depend on the personality, but that connection, like, kids have a hard time communicating now. I find they have a hard time looking somebody in the eye and, walking through a door and having any type of advocation for themselves, which is something that I really try and promote with them, to be able to do that. Right. I believe there is a place for sure, someone to, make that call for them, or to be that connection, because you shouldn't be in there all the time, right? Everyone's different, but like, where do you feel that fits? Like, as far as you being the guy, and them also being involved in some of those, I don't know what the right way is, but, off the ice stuff, right?
right.
Having a conversation with their coach.
Right. So I can weed things out, I feel, because once you've been doing this a little while, you start talking with the guys, and the coaches. And what a kid will be told is he'll say, hey, he's telling me I'm a top six forward. Well, hold on. I just talked to him 2 weeks ago. They're not looking for a top six forward. They're looking for a bottom six forward. Right. And that's where I feel that that's what you're paying me for, or whatever that is. I have to weed that out
Yeah.
because I know what teams, and I kind of know where you fit in and where they see you, right?
Mm.
Coaches or I find coaches, I don't have a ton of issues with coaches. I feel that they're very straightforward, honest with you, and they're like, hey, Dennis, this is what I need. Is your guy this fit? Right? Great. Yep, he is. Or you know what? He's right here, but you know,
Right.
I need all of that out. So I feel that they can be told something, and that's where I have to step in and say, okay, this is what I've talked to the coach. This is what the feedback I have, right? And
Yeah.
you're being told by somebody else that this is the feedback. So we just got to come together and get to a resolution on that, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right? Because
Fair enough.
these kids have a lot of teams pulling them in different directions,
Yeah. Yeah, and
right?
it's tough to navigate, and especially for the parents. I mean, I think there's a service there. You know, even me with like hockey's been my life. Like, there's stuff that like we don't have an advisor or anyone for Hudson, right? Like I've been his advisor, if you would call it that. But like, there's times where I'm like, geez, I wish I could, talks to somebody, or like to know. And I can imagine if for the families out there that have never been involved in any of it, like it's impossible to navigate and to do it with any type of confidence. So, I mean, there's definitely a place there for that. And it sounds like for you, um, that you're working on the people side too. Like you're checking in with your guys, like even if it's not a business related to thing, see how they're doing. You're wanting to see them play and all that stuff. I think that's like when I'm giving advice to parents, I'm like, you have to like the person like that you're dealing with, like for sure. And you have to feel that they actually care about you. If that's not there, I'm like, don't go with the biggest agency because they have the best guys. I'm like, that could be the worst decision of your life. You need someone that gives a crap about you, first and foremost.
Well, and Jason, like I'm never big groups, smaller groups. I've got a kid here. He's going to he was Austin Elliott, okay, and he's going to UMass Lowell, right? So if he gets an entry level, right, I'm possibly working with a bigger group, but I'm taking care of the kid, right, and they understand that, right,
Yeah.
and but I have the best kid's intentions because I want him to be successful, right? And if I have to push him to a bigger group, that's what I'm going to do, right? I'm not going to take a person. That's what I'm going to do
Yeah.
for him to have the best success to sign an entry level contract, and hopefully that's in 2 years, 3 years, whatever that is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But that's what it's about. You're right. When I meet with parents and kids, it's got to be a good fit on both ends, right?
Yeah.
Right. I've had some parents we parted ways. We just couldn't come together on where we thought they were as a hockey player. That's okay. It's nothing personal. It's just
Yeah.
business, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And vice versa, right? And but at the end of the day, it's the fit, and the kid has to feel that he's being taken care of, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's the reality we live in, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to do. I've got a partner down here in the US. We're out of Canada, originally, right? So we've got a pretty good reach, and it's been, buddy, it's been a great 4 years. It's just every year just got, better and better, right?
Well, if someone needs somebody or is looking for someone, I'll give you like, why don't you take the floor right now and like say who you're with and on really like where would people find out about you and your company and the potential of working with you?
Topdrafthockey.com. Okay, you can reach me at Dennis Maxwell _ Top Draft Hockey if you're on Instagram. Uh, but that's where you can find me. So we've got a Canadian in the US, and we've got a couple guys in the US that I have working together with me, and we're looking for good quality humans. We're looking for good people, right? And we want to help. That's what we're here to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah. So definitely everything that I've heard, partner, now that I know that you're even in the business, like it's funny how like your name comes up and then it's like it comes up and then it comes up and it comes up, right? It's like you've been a buzzword in the background here for me lately, and it's all been awesome things. So I mean, your your resume is speaking for itself, and I think you continue to do the right things consistently, and that's what it's all about. I mean, we talked about that as a player, we talked about that now as as what we're doing. Like you just try and continue to do the right thing and do it with integrity and honesty, and usually that works out. So congratulations on doing that, because you've built a nice little business and reputation for yourself.
Same as you, buddy. Same as you. All right, appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the time. I would really wish we actually had more time because there's so much more to talk about, but I have to
Well,
go to a practice. And we can always do part two, like you know, let's not just make
well,
this
I'm sure I'll
completely
be. I'm
over.
sure I'll see you. I'm sure I'll see you. I might be down at CDA. So
That'd be great. Yeah. Well, let's make something happen somewhere, someplace. It'd be great to catch up in person. But anyways, regardless, it was awesome to catch up, and we'll be in touch, my man.
thanks for having me on, Paul. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for sticking around and listening to that entire conversation with Dennis Maxwell. I hope you found it as enjoyable as I did. There's so much to learn from old guys like us that want to share our stories if you are willing to listen. I think, looking back on that episode now, a couple days later, that's probably the theme is, two guys that want to help that are still in the game because we want to help athletes achieve their goals and dreams. And we feel that using our experience and our knowledge now can hopefully shine some light on some areas that people miss. And as Dennis said numerous times there, myself included, that there are things that we didn't know that we wish we did know. We wish we had somebody in our corner that would maybe been able to help and guide. And yeah, and the results of that experience is our experience, what we do now, why this podcast exists, why we choose to help athletes reach their goals and dreams and support the families that are involved in it. So yes, usually I don't share as much as I did on this episode about my own journey, I guess you could say, through professional sports and where I felt some of my own pitfalls were. And you can see that I get passionate about that, though, because there's so much under the hood when it comes to the personality side of the game and the individuals, the people that are involved in the decisions, and the people that are involved inside a locker room, and how, what their belief system is, and how they choose to show up, and what their personality types are like, and how those integrate with each other. Like, that aspect of the game is so important and is very, very overlooked by numerous people. And you believe, as I believed, that it is 100% about the type of hockey player that you are, and it's very not 100% about the type of hockey player you are. So you want to align as many vectors as possible on your path, and sometimes that's taking a look at you as a person and how this represents, or how this might be perceived by those around you, and doing things by choice, that can aid you in getting to where you want to go. And recognizing that we can be authentic in these choices, and we have the ability to change. And that's where the growth mindset aspect of all that comes in. Because rigidity when it comes to these things is not your friend. And that's where I think that one of my biggest things is that I was rigid in my approach, and the idea of being autonomous and being a free thinker and being somebody that I took pride in my intelligence and in my approach and in my performance, that I almost swayed to the overly rigid side, and that I'm going to embrace this aspect of me, 110%, that I am not going to conform and meld and necessarily fit in with the herd. And again, that was not a conscious choice at all at the time, but one that I think I kind of subconsciously made at different points. Again, for me, I don't think I ostracized my teammates. I mean, I've had numerous pointed conversations about that, and I seem to be remembered as a good teammate, as somebody that was somebody that would look after the guys, which I'm so relieved to hear. But I do think that management probably didn't see me quite that way, and I think that hurt my prospects and my chances of getting to where I wanted to go. So super passionate about that aspect, and love to help players when it comes to player identity, personality identity, and how that shows up and looks and appears in a locker room. So Thanks again to Dennis for being here and for sharing his story, for sharing what he does now. Again, I advocated for Dennis at the beginning, but he by all accounts does a great job for his players and for his families. And if you are looking for somebody in the player advising department, they're all not built the same. Like you said, there's good lawyers and there's bad lawyers. There's good doctors and there's bad doctors, and I'm sure there's good advisors and not so good advisors. And I would definitely give him the stamp, the Up My Hockey credential stamp, for somebody that I would recommend working with and thinking that you'll get taken care of there. So that's Dennis Maxwell at Top Draft Hockey. And until next time, play hard and keep your head up.